All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jaden Torres, and welcome to my presentation for my security, compliance, and auditing class for the spring 2024 semester. This is part 3 of my ongoing compliance with my IT infrastructure domains. In this presentation, I will cover what the 7 domains are, why it's significant for compliance and security. In regards to our organization, which is S&H Aquariums, I would like to describe 2 controls from each domain that I believe would be best implemented for the business as they evolve into their own internal uh, security control system. Now, as per our last presentation, I have mentioned that the aquarium, the business, will likely best fall under our COSO security framework. Now, COSO, short for Committee of Sponsoring Organizations, is a great implementation and is best known for its framework that adheres to legal and ethical requirements while also observing proper management and risk management. Due to these components, a monitoring and reporting element is always heavily advised for the establishment of these controls. And knowing this responsibility, I want to integrate the PCI DSS requirements to this framework, as I believe both of them are a great pair together. As I mentioned before in my previous report, I have mentioned several principles that I believe do match up with each other and believe this is a great fit for our business. So let's just go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen and get on with our presentation. All right. Here is my PowerPoint presentation for the company. All right. So in this presentation, I would like to inform y'all that there is 7 domains to consider when implementing this kind of framework into our business. There is the user domain, the workstation domain, the LAN domain, the LAN to WAN domain, the WAN domain, the remote access domain, and the system application domain. So, and as previously mentioned before, the framework that is considered for our business is the COSO and the COSO principles and its relations to the PCI DSS requirements. All right. So first things first, let's start off with the user domain. So basically, user domain consists of any user accessing information from our organization. Basically, the end user who wish to gather any information that relates to themselves are held by us, or anything else in regards to the organization. Examples for that can be the user policy, system access policy, internet access policy, email policy, any sort of standards that we publicly set out to everyone. And keep in mind, all of these examples can be controlled within this domain. So controlling the user domain is a crucial part of the organization as it assures the CIA. CIA is short for confidentiality, integrity, and authentication. So ensuring that the CIA is protected, being transmitted inside and outside the organization with no interference. This is good to ensure whatever the user's accessing is protected. Protected, it is full with the truth and is authenticated by the organization itself. No third party should be intervening with this information that is from us. A control that will work well with the user domain is basically two-factor authentication. Ensures that the user's account is protected. So let's just say if a user would like to log in to access their more sensitive information, it's more private. They do not want their information public domain. So for that, we need to have a account, and account comes with their own credentials. To secure those credentials, two-factor authentication is a great implementation to execute across all businesses. This ensures that the user another sense of security. It gives any possible threats or intruders a little bit of a harder time to try to access any information that they're not authorized to. Another control to be implemented is kind of piggybacking off of two-factor authentication is biometric authentication. This is another form of authentication, but what's unique about this is biometric authentication is unique because it is basically you. So this can revolve around eye scans, facial scans, fingerprint scans, anything that is biologically attached to you can be used for authentication to access certain information. A COSO principle that can relate to this user domain is the number one. And the first principle of the COSO involved in the COSO pillar of control environment is the company commits to integrity and ethical values. So even though we are locking down your account, making sure they're secure, we are making a commitment that the information that you are accessing is authentic. The information is integral, and also to access this information is completely ethical, and it's up to your discretion, honestly, if you would want to sign up for two-factor or biometric authentication. Moving on forward to workstation domain. Workstation domain refers to the end user's computing environment or a information system. Information system, it's a broad definition of devices. Devices including desktops, laptops, printers, mobile devices, you name it. Anything that possibly has an internet connection or network connection can be referred to as an information system. To control this domain involves a proper maintenance of hardware and software that the user of the organization accesses. This is important because, as one of the control states, is a constant update rollout, making sure that the information systems on this domain stays up to date, making sure they're rolled out at the same time so no system's missing any updates and could be at risk of possible threats, breaching of accounts or information that could cost the organization. Another control is the regular hardware cycle. Technology comes and goes. It gets old after a few years. You know, as it gets older, more problems start to happen to it. It starts getting less reliable, and we don't want that. So a regular hardware cycle is recommended to keep the organization's system issues at a pure minimum and performance at a complete maximum. Performance, efficiency, all the fun stuff to keep the workplace up and running. A COSO principle that relates to this workstation domain is principle number 11. That is located under the control activities pillar and that states the company establishes control activities over technology in line with the company's objectives. Um, and basically, this works well with the workstation domain because it keeps the technology around the organization in line to observe objectives are met, excluding the risk of bottlenecking technology. All right, moving on, we have our LAN domain. The LAN domain is the computing and networking equipment for the organization. LAN refers to a small local area, such as an office building or store, a small corner store, or maybe you can even say your house. Some examples that can't be controlled in this domain can include file servers, network resources, even physical connections. So Ethernet, Cat5, Cat6. Those are examples of physical connections. So the LAN domain keeps every information connected together through a network. It is important to keep this control on this local network to have devices remain connected to the internet. I mean, to the network, connected to each other. So, and a control that can protect the LAN is a firewall. A firewall can filter out any internet traffic incoming or outgoing into the network and blocks some pretty unusual activity. Another control that can be implemented is securing access points within the network. So depending on how much access points that your LAN domain has, it's recommended to secure it, put it in the office behind a locked door, somewhere where, the security is sensitive and is at a high. This prevents any unauthorized people for having direct access to that access point and potentially, tuning in, plugging in something harmful for the network. A custom principle that falls in line to the LAN domain, in my opinion, is COSO principle number 3. This falls under the control environment COSO pillars, and this states that management defines organizational structure, authority, reporting lines, and responsibility to execute on the company's operational, reporting, compliance, and business objectives. I believe that this can be utilized when designing and lock down the LAN network of a business. All right, let's move on. LAN to WAN. So, if I haven't mentioned before, LAN, local access network, WAN, wide access network. This is basically the transition between the two. So, LAN to WAN refers to multiple LANs, local access networks, coming together to create a multi-point access point uh, to the organization's network. And examples of elements that can't be controlled in this domain are routers, firewalls, and intrusion detection devices. All right, LAN to WAN is important as it serves a gateway for the local area network to be bigger, wide area network. This sector is also needs to be secured and controlled by the organization to make sure no threats can intercept network traffic. Certain protocols can be also put in place to prevent this from happening. One control in particular is a VPN. VPN is a great for your network as it branches the organization together into an encrypted environment. This basically just tricks your workstation that you are on a network elsewhere remotely offsite from your organization. This makes it harder for intruders or possible threats to know the exact location of your offices. Another control that can be monitored in here is a firewall. A network's firewall is crucial to implement and design around your organization to prevent any threats. Um, for a COSO principle that I found to be in line with the LAN to WAN domain is principle number 2. Principle number 2 under the control environment COSO pillar states The board of directors maintains independence from management and oversees internal controls program. I found this to be relating to this domain as it revolves around a constant review and maintenance to be tended on to control and keep the network secure. All right, let's keep on moving. A WAN domain. So we are done with the transition from LAN to WAN. We are completely now in the wide area network domain. So the WAN domain is an end-to-end connectivity between LANs. The WAN spreads over a wide area to connect networks. Some examples of the elements that can't be controlled under this domain is routers, firewalls, and intrusion detection devices. This domain is important because it can control and has the ability to keep different branches of an organization connected together using the same network. And a possible control for this domain that can be used in our organization is a router or a intrusion detection system. A router can transfer the data from a network into its assigned destination, whether it is the internet or another system on the network. Routers is very good in this scenario. And IDS monitors the network traffic and looks for suspicious activities or threats that prevents them from transferring over to the network. More other possible controls. A firewall would be good in this case. A VPN will also be pretty cool in this case. Um, a COSO principle that I found to be in line with the WAN domain is principle number 9. Principle number 9 falls under the risk assessment COSO pillar. And this principle states that the organization anticipates and assesses any changes that may affect internal controls. So I believe that this principle works well with this domain because it offers the control activities to be implemented to address and mitigate supposed risk to the company's objectives. All right, let's move on to the remote access domain. So the remote access domain has the capability to access the organization's information and resources remotely or off the network. Now, technically, you do have to connect to the network. There's a couple ways to do that. Um, Elements that can be controlled through this domain is the internet and dial-up modems. So controlling the remote access domain enables the user to connect to the user's organization network offsite. This can support working from home or businesses, events offsite that require internet connection. This could help meet business calls or quickly route into your desk, your office cubicle desktop, access a quick file, send it to yourself, and then you're back over to your business seminar. So a control that I thought would be good for this is a VPN. I know personally from my business, we use VPNs a lot to remote into different systems to help troubleshoot for the users' problems and whatnot. So it's VPNs is great for creating a remote connection to access your organization's network. This enables steady connection to the organization network from anywhere that has a network connection or internet connection. Another control that is needed to be considered is authentication to use the VPN. We just don't want anyone to be using our VPN connection. So the user authentication to access the VPN is great. We use this at my own job, and I believe this will be great to implement into the SNH Aquarium's business. Use authentication to access the user VPN. We do not want the public to access our VPN just from anywhere or anytime. So I feel like this is great to prevent threats from gaining access. This domain required a page 2. So a COSO principle that I believe fell in line with the remote access domain is principle number 10. and that fell under the COSO pillar of control activities. Principle 10 states that control activities address and mitigate risk to the company's objectives. I believe this is a great consideration for the remote access domain because it address and mitigate possible threats for remoting into our network. It requires monitoring and making sure that every user is authenticated before accessing our system. And finally, we have our system application domain. This domain composes of systems and software applications that are accessible for users and associating or inquiring about the organization. To control this domain is essentially to keep the workflow of the organization as effective and efficient as possible. One of the controls I believe will be perfect for this is a support team. Support team, help desk, development team is a good control to implement for this domain. Users are going to notice that there is issues with their experience with certain applications that, you know, developers are possibly not able to find themselves. A support team can help navigate around these obstacles and support the users through these tasks. Another control can be a development team that can address these certain bugs or issues that could deter a user from their work. A COSO principle that I found to be in line with this system and application domain is principle number 11 that falls under the control activities COSO pillars. Principle number 11 states that the company establishes control activities over the technology in line with the company's objectives. And I believe this is a good principle to be implemented into this domain because it is using the system and application domain for optimization in favor for the company's objectives. All right, for my implications, the implications of these domains, along with the COSO security frameworks, can directly put their organization objectives first. So I believe that incorporating the design that I proposed for this company and these controls, the proper responsibilities, and the sectors for our internal security structure can prepare ourselves for the future. The direct goal of this rollout is to transfer the outstanding brick and mortar stance of our organization's process and then transfer online to keep the good standing record with consumers in the organization. Taking the compliant route of the using controls throughout the domain can benefit the company to having trusting assurance to themselves and the customers. For our conclusion, is the user of the control in the domain listed has the objective for securing the process to complete the objectives while also observing possible deterrents can create a safer workplace. Creating a safer workplace includes a lockdown of our organization's network and observe possible threats to prevent from interrupting the organization's objectives. These domains described individually has the elements when implemented correctly can cover the controls necessary to complete the organization objectives. All right, and I believe that is my references page. And this concludes my presentation for my security auditing and compliance class for the spring 2024 semester. I thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day.